As was said the other day, to become divine scientists, we have had to explore and examine the ways of cause and effect, action and reaction. To become divine physicists, we have had to experience and feel the profound emotional changes that are the way stations along our spiritual journey. But what is divine alchemy, or what is a divine alchemist? Now there are 3 levels of alchemy. The first, there are those who seek material gain by making base metal into gold. There are those who seek to mix the chemistries to make an elixir of immortality. And there's that level of those who use alchemy as a means of knowing the way stations along the path to liberation or the spiritual journey. But what is divine alchemy? There's an old Sufi story. That story is about that shepherd who every day took his flock of sheep up to the hillside to graze. But it so happened that this shepherd had become completely deaf. But every day his wife gave him a flask and bread and cheese to take up to the place where he grazed his sheep. But one day, when the shepherd was there at midday, when the sun was blazing overhead, and he was thirsty and hungry, he found that his wife had forgotten to give him his flask and his lunch bag. So, hungry and thirsty, but he happened to look around, and there was a farmer raking hay. Oh, thought the shepherd to himself, I'll ask this farmer, will he look after my sheep while I go and get my lunch? So he went over to the farmer, who also happened to have become quite deaf. And the shepherd said to the farmer, would you look after my sheep? My wife has forgotten to give me my flask of water and my bread and cheese. I'll just go down and get them. And the farmer looked at him and he said, no, you cannot have any of my hay. I'm raking this hay for my animals down in my farm. It takes me all my effort to rake this hay. No, you can't have any. So the shepherd said, oh, thank you very, very much. And off he trundled down the hill, got his lunch and his flagon, went back and partook of it, found that all his sheep, can't really count them, they were all there. So he was so grateful to the farmer, so he went up to where the farmer was again, but this time he thought, well, you know, he was so kind in looking after my sheep for me, I'll give him this little lame lamb as a gift. So he took up the little lame lamb to the farmer and he said, thank you very much, and here's a gift for you, this little lame lamb, thank you. The farmer said, I don't know what happened to your lamb, I didn't touch it. What are you talking? And a great argument ensued. There were toing and froing and shouting and waving of hands going on. And at that time, a horseman came by riding, and they decided to have him mediate between them. So they waved him down, and they both talking at once explained, but the horseman happened to be deaf also. And the horseman said, well, yes, I did steal a horse, but you know, it's not from around your neighborhood. No, nobody from around here, you know. Well, you can imagine what went on, the waving and the gesticulations and the shouting that went on. But just at that moment, along the road came a dervish, an imposing fellow in his patched work cloak, in his long black beard. So they accosted him to sort this thing out, but it so happened that the dervish did not have the power of speech. He was dumb. But he listened to all that was going on between the shepherd, the farmer, and the horseman. But not being able to speak, he just cast his black, deep, piercing eyes on each of them in turn. First of all, he gazed at the shepherd, who kind of immediately started to quake in his boots, thinking that the evil eye was being put on him. So he quickly ran away off back to his abode, and then the dervish cast his eyes on the farmer, who quaked in his boots also, because all the superstitions about dervishes came into his mind, and so he hurried off back to his farm, and then he turned, of course, to the horseman, and with his deep, deep gaze looked at him, and the poor man's knees went weak, and he almost fell to the ground. He quickly hopped on the horse and rode away. So the dervish went off walking down the road, shaking his head and thinking to himself, the power of language is wasted on the likes of men. What has this got to do with divine alchemy? First, we have to take it like all these stories in their immediacy, in what it is that happens for us, in the listening, the taking in, the ingesting of them, the filtering of them. So it's easy just to ask the question, what arises as the deep meaning of this story for us? Enabling us to begin to be aware of what divine alchemy and being a divine alchemist is. Right. Right. And yet, there is a response, isn't there? What arises for you in the immediacy as the deep meaning of this story?
Each one of them was locked into their own mind and their own selfish concerns, and so was unable to listen to the others.
Right.
And then the dervish came along and was able to connect to all of them.
Right.
And that fixed it up.
Right. So there's our divine alchemy, isn't it?
And it seems that just by being present and just listening, that person talking, spilling it all out, the realization comes to the answer to that question. It's just without your interference, and they can hear their own answers that they need to find with the mirror. It's like I was speaking to someone on the weekend, and they go, "Oh, this and that, oh, poor mirror." Oh, okay. And he said, "You're different. Everyone else tells me I'm wrong." it's how you feel. You can't be wrong.
Mm.
You, oh, there's a scary fella. I was a bit, go now.
He couldn't, yes.
My bulb went off in his head because I sort of wasn't going, well, you should do this and you should do that. Or you should do this.
Right.